There is a moment that comes quietly, no explosion, no dramatic breakdown, just a stillness. You're alone. Maybe late at night, maybe early in the morning before the world starts asking things from you, and for the first time in a long time, you see yourself clearly, not who you pretend to be, not who people think you are, but who you have actually become. The routines, the habits, the thoughts that repeat themselves like a broken loop, the same fears, the same compromises, the same internal negotiations. Days turn into weeks, weeks into years, and something inside you hasn't moved at all. That's when it hits you. You're not suffering because life is hard. You're suffering because you stayed the same. This is the pain most people never name. Not loud, not visible, but corrosive. A slow erosion of self-respect. The Stoics understood this pain better than most. They didn't call it depression. They didn't call it confusion. They called it living out of alignment with your nature. Marcus Aurelius wrote privately to himself, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts," meaning this: whatever you repeatedly think, tolerate, and accept, you become. And here's the uncomfortable truth. If you don't consciously shape who you are becoming, you will default into someone you don't respect. Most people try to fix this the wrong way. They add motivation, they watch inspirational videos, they tweak routines, they promise themselves that this time it will be different. But deep down, they know the truth. You can't fix what is fundamentally rotten. You can't build something new on a decaying foundation. Some versions of you are not meant to be improved. They are meant to be destroyed, not out of hatred, but out of clarity. This is where Stoicism separates itself from modern self-help. The world tells you, accept yourself as you are. Be gentle with your flaws. Love yourself unconditionally. The Stoics would call that comfort disguised as wisdom. True self-respect is not gentle, it is honest. And honesty sometimes sounds like this: "This version of me is no longer acceptable." Seneca wrote that no man is so virtuous that he is without defect, and no man so flawed that he is without potential. But potential means nothing if you protect the very behaviors that are killing it. This is where your transformation begins, not with hope, not with excitement, but with acknowledgement. Acknowledging that something in you has decayed. The discipline you once had is gone. The standards you once held have softened. The edge you once respected in yourself has been rounded down by comfort, and the longer you avoid admitting this, the more power it has over you. Most people sense this moment and immediately numb it. They scroll, they distract, they stay busy, they drown the signal with noise. Because if they sit with it too long, they might have to change. And change is expensive. Change costs relationships. Change costs identities. Change costs the version of you that learned how to survive by staying small. But Stoicism was never about survival. It was about mastery. Epictetus taught that the greatest battle is not with the world, but with the judgments you allow to rule your mind. And right now, one judgment is quietly ruining your life. This is just who I am. No, this is who you've allowed yourself to become, and that means it can be undone. But only if you're willing to stop negotiating with weakness. In this series, we are not talking about motivation. We are not talking about minor improvements. We are talking about identity, death, the deliberate destruction of the old self and the disciplined reconstruction of a stronger one, not in public, not for applause, not for validation, but in silence, alone. This is not a comfortable path. It will feel lonely. It will feel empty at times. There will be moments when you don't recognize yourself anymore, and the new version hasn't fully arrived yet. That space terrifies most people. But that space is where real transformation happens. You will learn why destruction is not optional, why every meaningful transformation in nature and in life begins with something being burned away. Because before you can build the man you respect, you must be willing to let the old one die, and most people never are. Why destruction is not optional. Every living system follows the same law. What cannot adapt must break. Forests burn so new growth can rise. Skin is shed so the body can grow. Cells die so the organism can survive. Nature does not negotiate with decay. Only humans try to preserve what is already failing. You feel it when you hesitate to let go, when you cling to habits that numb you, when you protect identities that no longer fit, not because they are right, but because they are familiar. That instinct feels like self-preservation. In reality, it's fear. The Stoics understood something most people resist their entire lives. Nothing new can emerge until something old is removed. Marcus Aurelius observed that the universe is in constant change, not chaotic change, but purposeful transformation. Everything that exists is either evolving or dissolving. There is no neutral state. If you are not consciously shaping yourself, you are being shaped by inertia, and inertia always favors the lowest standard you tolerate. This is why improvement alone fails. Most people try to add discipline without removing indulgence. They try to add confidence without removing self-contempt. They try to add structure without removing chaos. That never works. You cannot pour strength into a container that leaks weakness. Destruction is not cruelty, it is precision. It is the decision to stop feeding what weakens you. The reason this terrifies people is simple. Your identity is attached to what must be destroyed. Your routines, your excuses, your familiar struggles. You don't just lose habits, you lose stories. I've always been this way. This is just how I cope. I'm working on it. Those stories once protected you. They helped you survive. But survival is not the same as becoming. Seneca warned that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality, and nowhere is that more true than in transformation. The mind exaggerates loss to avoid change. It whispers, "What if you lose yourself? What if you become cold? What if you fail?" But here is the truth no one says out loud. You are already losing yourself by staying the same. Staying comfortable is not neutral. It is an active form of decay, and decay does not announce itself dramatically. It arrives quietly, in lowered standards, in delayed decisions. In the slow normalization of mediocrity, Stoicism does not ask you to hate yourself, it asks you to stop lying to yourself. Epictetus taught that freedom begins when you separate what is within your control from what is not. Your past is not in your control. Your upbringing is not in your control. Other people's opinions are not in your control, but your standards are, and standards require sacrifice. This is where destruction becomes unavoidable. You must decide what ends. The version of you that negotiates with weakness, the version that waits to feel ready, the version that confuses comfort with peace. These versions cannot come with you, not because they are evil, but because they are obsolete. Trying to carry them forward will sabotage everything you build. This is why half measures fail. People say they want change, but they leave doors open. They keep backup identities, backup habits, backup escapes. So when pressure arrives, and it always does, they retreat. Destruction removes retreat. It is the act of burning the bridge behind you, not out of drama, but out of clarity. Ancient warriors did this not to be reckless, but to remove hesitation. When there is no way back, the mind stops bargaining. It commits. This is the moment Stoicism demands courage. Not emotional courage, structural courage. The courage to say, "I am done protecting what no longer deserves protection." This does not mean chaos. It means intention. You are not destroying yourself. You are destroying false continuity, the illusion that the future must resemble the past. And once that illusion dies, something powerful emerges. Responsibility. No excuses, no nostalgia, no identities borrowed from old failures. Just choice. Cannot be done in the presence of noise. Why isolation is not punishment, but a forge. Because once destruction begins, the crowd becomes dangerous. And to rebuild yourself properly, you must step away from everything that still recognizes the old you. Why transformation requires solitude. Once destruction begins, something strange happens. The noise starts to bother you. Conversations feel hollow. Advice feels intrusive. Familiar places feel heavy. It's not arrogance. It's not isolation for its own sake. It's awareness. You begin to realize that most of your life has been lived in reaction to expectations, to opinions, to unspoken pressure to remain familiar. And familiarity is the enemy of transformation. The Stoics did not romanticize solitude, but they respected it. They understood that no serious reconstruction of the self can happen while you are still performing for others. Because the moment someone is watching, you are no longer becoming, you are managing perception. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet wrote that people search for retreats in the countryside, at the sea, or in the mountains, not realizing the most powerful retreat is withdrawing into oneself. But here's the part most people misunderstand. Internal retreat requires external quiet. You cannot dismantle your identity while constantly being reminded of who you used to be. Other people's memories of you act like gravity. They pull you back into old roles without effort. They don't do this out of malice. They do it because stability feels safe. When you change, you destabilize the version of reality they've learned to navigate. So they joke, they question, they minimize. You've changed. Don't take life so seriously. You're doing too much. That is not concern. That is resistance. Stoicism teaches you to be indifferent to opinions, but not ignorant of influence. And influence is strongest when it is subtle. This is why solitude is not optional. It is strategic. In solitude, there is no audience, no reward for announcing progress, no validation for intention, only execution, only honesty. Only the uncomfortable confrontation between who you are and who you claim you want to be. Most people avoid solitude because it removes distraction, and distraction protects weakness. When you are alone, there is nowhere to hide, no one to blame, no one to impress, no one to rescue you from your own thoughts. This is where discipline is born, not motivation discipline. Because motivation requires stimulation, discipline requires decision. Epictetus taught that if you want to improve, you must be willing to appear foolish or ignorant in matters that do not concern your character. Translated into modern life, that means this: you must stop explaining yourself, stop announcing your plans, stop seeking agreement, stop narrating your transformation. Silence is not secrecy. It is insulation. When your identity is fragile, exposure damages it. When your identity is solid, exposure does nothing. Solitude protects the fragile phase. This is where most people fail. They invite commentary too early. They seek accountability before commitment. They trade depth for visibility. And visibility creates pressure to perform, not to become. Stoicism does not care how you look. It cares who you are when no one is watching. In solitude, your excuses lose power. You can't claim you're tired when there's no one to convince. You can't pretend progress when there's no applause. You either act or you don't. And that clarity is ruthless. But it is also liberating. Because once you accept solitude, you stop fearing abandonment. You realize that most of what you called connection was dependency. Dependency on reassurance, dependency on distraction, dependency on noise to avoid self-examination. Solitude severs that dependency, and, in its place, something far more valuable forms: self-trust. You start keeping small promises to yourself. You do things without witnesses, you build momentum without permission, and slowly, the need to be understood fades. This is when you begin to change for real, not theatrically, not socially. Structurally, you think differently, you speak less, you observe more, you stop reacting to everything because you are no longer available to everything, and this is not loneliness. Loneliness is the craving for distraction. Solitude is the acceptance of responsibility. The Stoic understands the difference. Voluntary discomfort. The fire that forges discipline. Solitude clears the noise. But silence alone does not make you strong. Left unchecked, solitude can soften into comfort. And comfort is the exact condition that created your weakness in the first place. This is where Stoicism becomes uncompromising. The Stoics did not merely think about discipline, they trained it. They understood that if the mind is never challenged, it will choose ease every time, and ease, prolonged enough, destroys character. Seneca warned that a man who grows accustomed to luxury becomes enslaved by it, not because luxury is evil, but because dependence is. Discipline is not built by intention, it is built by exposure. Exposure to difficulty, exposure to resistance, exposure to discomfort, chosen deliberately, not imposed by chaos. This is what the Stoics called voluntary hardship. Not suffering for drama, not pain for punishment, but training for inevitability. Life will apply pressure, loss will arrive, fatigue will come, uncertainty will test you. The question is not if you will suffer, but whether you will be ready. Most people wait for hardship to train them. By then, it is too late. Stoicism reverses this. You train first. Voluntary discomfort teaches the mind a crucial lesson. I can act independently of how I feel. This single realization changes everything, because weakness is not inability. It is dependency on comfort. Every time you choose the easier option, you reinforce the belief that discomfort controls you. Every time you choose the harder option, you break that belief. This is how discipline is forged. Not in grand gestures, but in small, repeated acts of resistance. Cold instead of warm. Effort instead of delay. Silence instead of indulgence. The Stoics practiced this deliberately. Cold exposure, fasting, simple food, hard beds. Not because they despised pleasure, but because they refused to be ruled by it. Seneca advised practicing poverty even when wealthy, asking yourself, is this what I feared? Because fear loses its power once you face it voluntarily, and this applies directly to you. Right now, your mind associates discomfort with danger, with too hard, with not worth it. That association must be destroyed. Voluntary discomfort rewires the nervous system. You stop panicking at resistance. You stop negotiating with effort. You stop waiting to feel ready. You act because action is required, not because emotion allows it. This is the shift from intention to identity. Most people want discipline without discomfort. That is impossible. Discipline is simply discomfort chosen in advance. If you do not choose it deliberately, life will choose it for you, and it will be far less kind. This is why Stoicism does not promise ease. It promises resilience. The goal is not to suffer forever. The goal is to remove fear of suffering. Once fear is gone, freedom follows. Voluntary discomfort does something else that is rarely discussed. It exposes your excuses. When you are cold, hungry, tired, or bored, your mind reveals itself. The rationalizations, the justifications, the weakness disguised as logic. I deserve rest. It won't matter if I skip today. I'll do it tomorrow. These thoughts are always there. Comfort just hides them. Discomfort brings them into the light, and once exposed, they lose power. You begin to see that most of what you called limits were preferences. You were never incapable, you were just unwilling to feel discomfort. This realization is humbling and empowering, because willingness can be trained, one deliberate act at a time. You don't need extremes, you need consistency, cold showers, early mornings, training when tired, saying no when yes would feel easier. These are not habits, they are statements. Statements that say, my actions are not controlled by comfort, and over time, the mind adapts. Discomfort becomes familiar, resistance becomes neutral, effort becomes normal. This is when identity shifts. You stop thinking of yourself as someone trying to be disciplined. You become disciplined, not because you feel strong, but because you have proven it repeatedly. Destroying false beliefs, the inner demolition. You can endure discomfort, you can isolate yourself, you can build discipline through action and still lose. Because the most dangerous enemy is not weakness of body, it is corruption of judgment. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. They knew that no amount of effort could save a man who believes the wrong things about himself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." That applies not only to events, but to identity. The beliefs you hold about who you are act like invisible architecture. They determine what you attempt, what you tolerate, what you abandon. And most of these beliefs were never chosen. They were absorbed. From parents, from failure, from repetition, from moments of weakness that hardened into identity. I'm not disciplined. I'm bad with consistency. I always fall off. I'm just wired this way. These are not observations, they are permissions. Permissions to stop trying early, permissions to sabotage progress, permissions to stay small while pretending it's honesty. Stoicism is ruthless toward these lies. Epictetus taught that it is not events that disturb us, but the judgments we form about them. That means your greatest work is not external achievement, it is internal correction. You cannot rebuild your life while letting old beliefs run unchecked, because beliefs create behavior automatically. You don't wake up and decide to fail. You fail because your mind quietly expects it, and expectation shapes action. This is why Stoicism begins with examination, not affirmation, not positivity. Examination. Every time a limiting thought appears, the Stoic asks, is this true or is it familiar? Familiar thoughts feel true because they repeat often. Truth does not require repetition. Most people never question their internal voice. They assume it is them. It is not. It is programming. And programming can be rewritten, but only if you are willing to confront it. This is where most people stop, because confronting belief feels like standing on unstable ground. If this thought isn't true, then who am I without it? That uncertainty feels dangerous, but uncertainty is not danger. It is freedom. The old identity must be destabilized before a new one can form. This is inner demolition. You begin to observe your thoughts without obeying them. When the mind says, I can't, you ask, based on what? When it says, I always fail, you ask, always? When it says, this isn't me, you ask, who decided that? These questions weaken the structure of false belief, but questioning alone is not enough. Beliefs are not changed by thought, they are changed by evidence. Stoicism demands action to contradict illusion. If you believe you lack discipline, you don't argue with the belief, you disprove it. You choose one action, small, non-negotiable, and you execute it daily regardless of emotion. Not to feel strong, but to generate proof. Proof silences belief. Each completed action becomes evidence against the old identity, and over time, the belief collapses under the weight of contradiction. This is why Stoicism does not rely on motivation. Motivation fluctuates, evidence accumulates. False beliefs thrive in abstraction, they die in repetition. But here is the crucial warning. As old beliefs weaken, the mind panics. It will attempt to restore order. It will say, "You're changing too much. This isn't sustainable. Don't get ahead of yourself." These are not warnings. They are defensive reactions. The old identity is losing control, and it will fight to survive. This is why vigilance matters. You must treat your mind like a courtroom, not a dictator. Thoughts may speak, but they must prove their claims, and most cannot. The Stoic does not silence thoughts emotionally. He interrogates them rationally. Over time, something remarkable happens. The internal voice changes, not because you forced positivity, but because false beliefs lost authority. Your mind stops predicting failure, stops exaggerating discomfort, stops narrating weakness. And in that silence, clarity appears. You begin to act without internal sabotage, not because life is easier, but because resistance is no longer personal. This is the difference between effort and alignment. If your environment remains unchanged, why old spaces, old patterns, and old access points quietly pull you backward? Because identity is not only internal, it is reinforced externally, and Stoicism requires mastery of both. None. Severing the anchors to your old life. You can change your thinking, you can train discipline, you can endure discomfort and still be pulled backward, not by weakness but by anchors. Anchors are not dramatic. They do not announce themselves as enemies. They feel familiar. They feel harmless. They feel like home, and that is exactly why they are dangerous. The Stoics understood that while you cannot control the world, you can control your proximity to what weakens you. Wisdom is not testing yourself against unnecessary temptation. Wisdom is removing the temptation entirely. Your environment is not neutral. Every place you return to, every person you regularly engage with, every object you allow, repeated access to reinforces a version of you. Most people underestimate this. They believe strength means resisting influence. Stoicism says strength means designing life, so resistance is rarely required. This is where transformation becomes practical. Look at your life honestly. Where do your worst habits appear most easily? Where does discipline soften without effort? Where does the old version of you resurface without warning? These are not coincidences. They are conditioned responses. Your brain associates locations, people, and routines with identity. That is why someone can feel powerful alone and weak the moment they step back into an old environment. It's not failure. It's architecture. The Stoics did not cling to architecture that corrupted character. Seneca warned against keeping company that drags the soul downward, not out of arrogance, but survival. Because proximity shapes behavior faster than intention. You can meditate for hours, then undo it in minutes by returning to environments built around indulgence. This is why anchors must be severed, not forever. Not violently, but deliberately. This does not require confrontation, it requires distance. You do not owe access to people who cannot respect your evolution. You do not owe loyalty to habits that only existed to numb you. You do not owe comfort to environments that keep you small. Transformation demands subtraction. This is where guilt appears. The mind will say, "They've always been there. That's just how we relax. I don't want to seem cold." But Stoicism does not confuse kindness with self-sacrifice. Justice includes justice toward yourself. and there is nothing just about allowing your future to be sabotaged by your past. Anchors are not always people. Sometimes they are objects. The couch where discipline dies, the phone that floods your mind before you think, the substances that quiet discomfort instead of strengthening you. These are not neutral tools. They are access points, and access points determine behavior. The Stoic does not rely on willpower in a weak environment. He redesigns the environment. He removes what weakens him. He introduces friction to indulgence. He makes discipline easier than decay. This is not extreme, it is intelligent. You are not running away from temptation. You are refusing to live surrounded by reminders of who you no longer are. This phase feels lonely, because distance creates silence, and silence reveals who was only present out of convenience. That realization hurts, but clarity always does. Most relationships are not destroyed by growth, they are exposed by it. Those who belong in your future will respect your boundaries. Those who don't will resist them. Their resistance is information. Stoicism teaches that everything reveals its nature under pressure. So do people, so do habits, so do environments. As you remove anchors, something shifts. Your energy stabilizes, your decisions simplify, your mind stops fighting battles it no longer needs to fight. This is when momentum becomes real. Not because you feel strong, but because less is draining you. But removal alone is not enough. Empty space invites regression. This is where most people fail. They destroy without rebuilding. They remove old habits but replace them with nothing. Nature hates a vacuum, and the mind will fill it with whatever is familiar. In the next and final part, you will learn how Stoicism completes the transformation by building unbreakable systems, purpose, and vigilance. Because destruction clears the ground, but structure determines whether what you build lasts. Destruction clears the ground, discomfort hardens the will, clarity removes illusion, distance breaks old gravity. But none of this matters if what you build cannot last. This is where most transformations die, not at the beginning but after progress. When the pain fades, when the urgency softens, when life starts to feel manageable again, that is when the old self waits, not loudly, not aggressively, patiently. The Stoics understood this final truth. The old version of you never disappears. It goes dormant. Seneca warned that vice does not retreat, it rests. It waits for fatigue, for distraction, for complacency. This is why Stoicism does not aim for peak performance. It aims for structural stability. You do not win by intensity, you win by systems. Systems remove decision-making from moments of weakness. Marcus Aurelius did not rely on inspiration to govern an empire. He relied on ritual, morning reflection, daily duty, evening review. Not because he enjoyed it, but because consistency outlives motivation. A system is not a schedule. It is an identity expressed daily. What you do every day becomes who you are, whether you intend it or not. So the question is no longer, how do I change? It is, what does the man I am becoming do every day, without debate? This is where your reconstruction becomes permanent. You define non-negotiables, not goals, not dreams, standards. Standards do not ask how you feel. They act. You wake at the same time. You train regardless of mood. You protect silence. You execute the work before distraction, not because it feels powerful, but because it removes chaos. This is how identity solidifies. But systems alone are not enough. Systems without meaning collapse under pressure. This is why Stoicism demands purpose, not passion, not ambition. Purpose. Purpose is the reason you endure discomfort without resentment. It answers the question, why does this suffering matter? The Stoics anchored purpose in virtue, wisdom, justice, courage, self-discipline, not outcomes. Outcomes are unstable. Virtue is not. When your purpose is rooted in becoming a man of character, failure does not destroy you. Loss does not derail you. You return to the system. This is how resilience is built. Not by avoiding hardship, but by giving it meaning. And then comes the final requirement: vigilance, the most uncomfortable truth of all. There is no finish line. There is no arrival. There is no day where discipline becomes optional. The moment you believe you are done, you begin to decay. Stoicism is not a phase. It is a lifelong posture. Marcus Aurelius wrote, knowing his private journal would never be read. That is the standard. You live as if no one is watching because no one needs to. You examine yourself nightly, not with shame but with precision. Where did weakness attempt entry? Where did comfort negotiate? Where did ego speak? You correct, you adjust, you continue. Not dramatically, not emotionally, relentlessly. This is how the man you are becoming survives pressure. He does not panic in uncertainty. He does not chase validation. He does not need permission. He is internally governed. And here is the quiet truth most people never reach. When discipline becomes identity, life becomes simpler. Not easier, simpler. Decisions clarify, noise fades, distractions lose power. You stop asking, "What should I do?" because the system answers for you. And slowly, without announcement, something profound happens. You become someone you trust. You keep your word. You act when required. You endure without complaint. Not because you are exceptional, but because you are aligned. This is the end of the old cycle. No more dramatic resets. No more starting over. Just steady execution. And if you feel alone here, understand this. You are not lonely. You are no longer dependent. That is the price of self-mastery, and it is worth paying. Because the man who can govern himself cannot be controlled, cannot be broken, and cannot be returned to who he once was. That version is gone, burned, and what remains is not perfect, but unshakable. Become the master of your mind, destroy the old, rebuild in solitude, rise as someone new. The work begins now, alone.